Welcome to The Explainer. Every machine has its limits, but today we're talking about an airplane that took on the very laws of physics to get off the ground and, well, it won. We're talking about the legendary Boeing 747.
So, let's just jump right in with a question. What on earth could a massive jumbo jet possibly have in common with a nimble fighter pilot? I mean, you'd think absolutely nothing, right? But you'd be wrong. Once they're airborne, they're both trapped in the exact same invisible cage.
You see, they both have to live within something called the flight envelope. The best way to think about it is as an invisible box in the sky. If you fly too slow, you stall and fall right out of it. If you fly too fast or pull too hard, the stress can literally rip the plane apart. So the bigger and stronger you can make that cage, the more an aircraft can do. And back in the 1960s, Boeing set out to build the biggest cage the world had ever seen.
And that brings us to the 747. The whole story really begins with one of the biggest corporate gambles in history. Because to pull this off, Boeing wasn't just building a new plane. They were trying to build a whole new kind of cage.
To make it happen, Boeing took on so much debt, we're talking a record-breaking $2 billion back then, which is over $17 billion in today's money. Can you even imagine? They were literally betting the entire company on this one idea, that their engineers could stretch the known limits of aviation.
And the vision behind this gamble was just massive. The CEO of Pan Am, who was the 747's first customer, called it a great weapon for peace. But to actually achieve that dream, Boeing first had to solve some seriously huge physics problems.
To get this giant into the sky, Boeing's engineers had to wage a war on three fronts, against three invisible enemies that were all trying to keep this beast on the ground. Let's break down who they were fighting.
Okay, enemy number one, stall speed. Simply put, you have to go fast enough to stay in the air. But for a plane weighing over 333 metric tons, flying slow enough to land on a normal runway, well, that was a monumental challenge.
Right, so here's the core of the problem. A heavier plane needs more speed to generate lift. It's just basic physics. The 747 was so ridiculously heavy that if it followed the old rules, its landing speed would have been too fast for almost any airport on Earth.
So what did they do? They invented this absolute marvel of engineering, a super complex system of triple slotted flaps. You can see how they work here. They basically allowed the wing to completely change its shape for takeoff and landing, generating a massive amount of extra lift at low speeds. It's what allowed this giant to float down onto a runway like a much smaller plane. Pretty clever, huh?
All right, so they solved the going slow problem. But what about going fast? At the other end of that flight envelope, they slammed right into another wall. This one's called wave drag. As the 747 got close to the speed of sound, these powerful shock waves would form on its wings, creating incredible drag and just wasting tons of fuel.
And the solution here was just brilliant in its subtlety. It was all about the shape of the wing. Instead of a traditionally curved wing, the 747 used a supercritical design. You can see it's noticeably flatter on top. That small change was a total game changer. It delayed those powerful shock waves from forming and let the plane slice through the air efficiently right near the sound barrier.
Okay, so they solved for slow, they solved for fast. But their most dangerous enemy, the one that could have killed the whole project, was something else entirely. Aero-elastic flutter. And trust me, this is the stuff of pilot nightmares. It's not just a simple vibration, it's a violent runaway oscillation that can grow and literally tear the wings clean off an airplane in seconds.
And sure enough, in flight tests, they found it. The 747's enormous, flexible wings started twisting dangerously at high speeds. This was a showstopper. The entire program was suddenly at a standstill, in real jeopardy.
The engineers figured they needed a counterweight, like on a seesaw, placed in a very specific spot to cancel out the vibration. But here was the puzzle. What material on Earth is dense enough to do the job without adding a ton of extra bulk and weight to the wings?
Well, the answer they came up with is genuinely one of the most surprising and kind of wild material choices in the history of aviation. That's right, depleted uranium. Why? Well, it's one of the densest materials known to man. It gave them the maximal amount of weight in the smallest possible space. They strategically placed hundreds of pounds of it inside the outer engine housings, and just like that, the deadly flutter was tamed. A truly radical solution to what could have been a project-killing problem.
So having conquered its enemies, the 747 didn't just succeed. Its incredible strength and sheer size opened the door for it to live some pretty wild second lives.
I mean, come on.
For years, it was the only aircraft strong enough to serve as NASA's personal ferry for the space shuttle. A jumbo jet with a literal spaceship on its back? That's just an unforgettable image of pure engineering ambition.
And get this, it even became a flying laboratory. This specialized version tested brand new engines for other aircraft by mounting a fifth one right on its wing. It was literally pushing the boundaries for the next generation of flight.
So after stretching its flight envelope and conquering the laws of flight, what was the ultimate legacy of this incredible machine?
It wasn't just a bigger plane, it was a total revolution in capacity. I mean, look at this. It carried more than double the passengers of the jets that came before it. That sheer scale changed the economics of flying forever. And by making those long-haul flights cheaper and way more accessible, the 747 really did democratize air travel for millions and millions of people. All of a sudden, the world became a much smaller place.
You know, the story of the 747 really shows us that while you can't break the laws of physics, you can engineer incredible ways to stretch the limits of what's possible. It leaves us with a final thought. The engineers of the 747 solved problems that everyone said were impossible. So what barriers that seem impossible to us today will the next generation find a way to stretch?